Hey guys, I'm Johnny. Welcome to episode 3. And today, while we're looking for the satellites, we're going to be diving a little bit into the whistleblower who's come out recently, Matthew Brown. Kind of a hot topic in the UAP community at the moment. And not only did he come out recently with a really amazing series of interviews with Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp, two of the OGs in the UFO reporting scene, but he also revealed a pretty cryptic, you might want to call it Enochian or esoteric X-post in which he referenced some old 1600s magical systems and angel names. And I mean, he was already a really interesting whistleblower, but he just went so much deeper in a completely unexpected direction. So we're going to jump into that and kind of talk about that, update you guys on that situation, and we're also going to get Grok to summarize the Immaculate Constellation documents, which is exactly what Matthew Brown is known for writing, actually. He wrote the whole report while he was working for NRO, or I'm going to mess that up, where Matthew Brown was actually working. Do you remember? Might say it
No,
here.
I don't. I just know he was in the Pentagon because he had access to all those databases of information.
Mm-hmm.
And while you do that, I'm just going to say we've got our first non-satellite right here, a minute back into the footage. As you can see, there is no satellite here on the Orbi tracker, but yet this little yellow ball of light is making its way across our sky.
Doesn't take long to find them, guys. They are always flying around up there.
So I'll add that to the non-satellite.
So I think a good place to start with Matthew is just to play kind of some of the things he has said in that interview with Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp. And I'm currently on Carl Crusher's channel. Shout out to Carl Crusher because he did a really nice edit of some of the stuff that Matthew said. Not going to play the whole thing, but let's just listen to a few of these things.
It was immediately like, whoa, what the hell is that? It was in, I assume, infrared, black hot for that one. So the white clouds around it. And yeah, it's almost playful in its activities, or like it was startled. But it's one of those cases where I look at it and, you know, it looks like a flying saucer, and it was often labeled like a floating brain or an organic or irregular shape. So that's why it's in there. So yeah, I've seen multiple instances of irregular shaped things that look thematically similar to the jellyfish.
A new bombshell has just dropped from the Weaponized podcast with Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp, where they've been interviewing Pentagon whistleblower Matthew Brown, who is the author of the Immaculate Constellation document and has dropped information on Congress and is trying to pave the way to open the door for humanity to actually escape from the Matrix. These are not my words. These are the words from the whistleblower Matthew Brown coming out of the Pentagon, saying that we are trapped in some kind of an illusion, that we are in a dream, and that this is a matrix that is being controlled by some kind of a force outside of ourselves, and that regular humanity has been left behind.
We live in the Matrix. It's just much more boring than the movie. This is held in an illegal internationalist regime, some sort of international cabal of sorts, mix of corporate, military, political, intelligence, and criminal interests that have come together, and they have subverted us and have taken this and have made it the source of their wealth and power. The reason they're here is us. I think life, especially sentient life, is a precious thing. And I think to some, it might be a resource. I think humanity to some level is a resource for them.
Like a commodity?
Possibly a commodity, possibly a form of entertainment, possibly medical related. You are not free. And this reality has far more to it than you have been allowed to believe. and God is real.
All right, there you go,
Whoa.
guys. Little bit of a leap there,
Heavy
right?
stuff.
For a whistleblower. I mean,
And this whistleblower, from what I understand, is not protected.
no, I don't think so. I mean, I have heard in some of the discords I'm in that keep up tight with this stuff that Michael Herrera, who's another whistleblower, is and has reached out to Matthew Brown and is trying to help Matthew Brown get protection and
Because Matt
make
Brown
sure
said
he's safe.
something about he's expecting something like life in jail or execution because of treason.
Right.
He said that in the first interview, I believe.
Right. And we don't know, we don't really know. I can't really find if Matthew Brown went through the DOPSR process with all of this, but the impression is that maybe he didn't. DOPSR, for those of you guys who don't know, is DoD pre-publications review. I think there's one more word in there, but essentially it's if you work for the Department of Defense and you want to say anything publicly about anything you work on, you got to submit what you'd like to say to DOPSR as a proposal, and then DOPSR will look over it, and DOPSR hands it out to all of the agencies around the government, all the federal agencies, who can flag what you're saying and say it's confidential, and therefore you can't say it. But as Jake Barber's talked about, one of the loopholes, you might call it, with DOPSR is that if they flag something, they are admitting that whatever they just flagged is part of a secret project or is part of some sort of confidential project. And so it's a bit of an admittance for DoD to do that, and they have to tell you which agency flagged it. So Jake has talked about how his strategy was to say as much as he could in the report and hope basically that DoD, that DOPSR, was not willing to flag it, because if they flagged it, they'd be admitting that, you know, something like there were conscious UAPs or, you know, some of this crazier stuff. And so it kind of puts them in a lose-lose situation, according to Jake Barber. But that's just Jake Barber. We don't really know what Matthew Brown submitted or went through, but we do know that he wrote this, which is the Immaculate Constellation Report. This is a big deal, guys. This goes through, I mean, huge.
Scary.
I know a lot of you guys have heard Immaculate Constellation, the words being thrown around. Highly recommend you go read this report. We're going to have Grok summarize it for us today just to kind of get the bullet points. But essentially, this is breaking down not only surveillance methods, but it's breaking down facilities associated with this UAP kind of ARV, as in alien reproduction vehicles. That's what ARV means. And that's officially in the language of this document.
Mind if I pause you a second just to
go
show
for
you?
it.
We've had a number of non-satellites cross the screen, and we just had a crawler. So I'm going to go at top speed. This is a crawler. So I think we're going at 6 speed. You can see how fast the seconds and the minutes are going. Whoop. Busy sky. Back to it.
Yeah. Let's jump down to section 2 here, because this is one of the really good points here. This is going to be about imagery sensors available to U.S. military and the intelligence community, and it lists a bunch of these things: infrared, forward-looking infrared, full motion video, thermal, still photography, basically saying if we've captured these things on different devices, what forms have been captured. And they kind of give you some examples here. For instance, cuboid formation of metallic orbs. On USG networks, there exists daytime FM, meaning full motion video, and daytime FLIR, so infrared footage, of a formation of 12 metallic orbs skimming the ocean surface at high speeds before dispersing in multiple directions. The rapid and agile moving of the metallic orbs were incompatible with known aerospace vehicles and were between 3 to 6 meters in diameter. In the opening segment of the footage, the 12 metallic orbs fly in a tight cuboid formation. The metallic orbs were in 3 vertical square formations of roughly 4 orbs each, arranged in a 3-pronged configuration, creating the illusion of a cube shape at a distance. All the orbs were white hot against the black cold ocean in the IR footage, and each sphere created a faint atmospheric distortion both around itself and as a heat shimmer contrail. The metallic orbs moved in this cube formation over the ocean for some time before rapidly breaking formation as pairs. The sensor platform lost track of most of the metallic orbs as they ascended in altitude and accelerated in speed, but maintained observation on a pair of orbs continuing the original trajectory of the larger formation. So right there, official admittance of 12 orbs flying in formation together. That's not something that's going to happen naturally. That's going to be some kind of controlled or intelligent device. And then right below that, we've got fast mover observed transiting over sensitive facilities. There exists FLIR footage of a small, medium oval UAP flying at high speed and low to the surface. The footage begins as routine surveillance of a sensitive coastal facility when the oval UAP rapidly comes into view as it flies above the facility. The oval UAP then makes a rapid turn towards the ocean where it's tracked by the collection platform. The oval UAP is tracked flying low over the open ocean at high speed before the track is lost. And now for those of you guys who aren't familiar with, like, where did Matthew Brown get all this stuff? Like my brother mentioned, he had access to very secure databases within the Department of Defense, and he found stuff like this. Large disk using clouds as concealment. The saucer was between 200, 400 meters in circumference, displayed symmetrical concavities on the upper surface. It emerges at a shallow angle while traveling upwards towards the upper atmosphere. So a giant flying saucer hiding within clouds. He started to see this stuff inside this database, and he actually reported it to his superiors, said, hey, I think there's been a leak. I think I may have seen some things I wasn't supposed to see, and I just wanted to report it to you. And when that didn't work out the way he was hoping to, meaning that they basically just told him to be quiet or to not deal with it, or he didn't hear any more about it, essentially after that, they were just trying to move on. He was still very concerned about this, and it started to turn up more and more information. Boomerang UAP, absorbed by pilot and sensor suite. Jellyfish UAP crosses US-Mexico border. So now you've got UAPs crossing international borders as well. Supersonic range Fowler intercepts USN fighter. TikTok detected by a space asset in proximity of vessel. So these are major, major breaches of national security. And that's Matthew's concern. There's also, of course, the ontological truth of just, are we alone? And what are these things? But getting past the specific reports, you'll notice here that they have their own classifications of UAP shapes. And I find this very cool because, jumping back to Jake Barber, if you guys remember, we got to see the Skywatcher classes get disclosed by Jake Barber. They have 9 classes for UFOs. And my brother and I were, I guess you could say, a little perplexed to notice that disc or saucer was not among the 9 classes. Boomerang was not among the 9 classes, and triangle was not among the 9 classes. And these are the 3 UAPs that are heavily reported. I mean, triangles are pretty rare, but still, there was the Belgian wave. We definitely know these things exist.
X-Files starts with the triangle.
The X-Files starts with the triangle. There's
TRB.
The accounts of Edgar Fouché and the TR-3B, which we'll get into in another episode.
But we also,
really good stuff.
We figured out, well, Jake shared in an interview that he was not going to reveal anything that would jeopardize national security secrets.
Right.
So therefore, in Skywatcher's classifications, if some of those craft were manufactured by the U.S., he's not going to talk about them.
Right. And whether he knows it or not, whether he knows that those are ARVs or not, it seems like he's playing it safe. But I find it interesting that here, in the Immaculate Constellation documents, which, remember, came out like less than a month before Jake came out. I mean, they came out right before Jake came out. And these have their own classifications. And I'll read down through these right now. From 1991 to 2022, the most common UAP shapes reported in the USG, so US government data set, were spheres and orbs, discs and saucers, ovals and tic-tacs, triangles, boomerang/arrowheads, and irregular or organic shapes, which would be like the jellyfish. The triangles/boomerang/arrowhead shapes were by far the rarest, and spheres the most common. Variations of morphology within these categories are present, i.e. smooth spheres and spheres with protuberances, saucers with domes and without domes, smooth ovals and ovals with surface structures, jellyfish or floating quote-unquote brains with appendages, or elongated triangles.
Sorry to interrupt you there.
What's up?
Reminds me of Metroid.
Yeah, the floating brains.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's always been one of my favorite like nicknames for UAPs is the space brains. So then they go into these specific classifications here, and I'll read through these as well. Sphere or orb were the most reported shape, with variations ranging from smooth and featureless to spheres with visible openings, or others with appendages. These objects' prevalence suggest a possible standard in UAP design or function, capable of high maneuverability and speed. The diversity within the sphere category, spanning from simple polished appearances to very complex structures with appendages, suggests a broad range of purposes or technologies unique to the platform's mission or the originator. Disk or saucer is number 2. Saucer-shaped UAPs reported with and without domes were the second most common shape reported. Flat saucers were reported as well, these being disk-like objects without pronounced domes. Traditional biconvex UAPs are also reported in the data. I think this is the most important part of the document, at least for me personally, because I have been wondering, why don't we hear about saucers anymore? Why do we hear about no reports of saucers? You know, we got the Tic Tac and the Nimitz event officially from the Pentagon, but saucers, it's just shh. You have to go back. You have to go backwards to the 90s and the 80s and the 70s and the 60s, and then you get a bunch of saucers. But it's like now it's less reported. And yet here in this document, it says it's the second most reported, right behind orbs. And we hear about orbs all the time. So I just find that very interesting.
Yeah,
I think
seriously.
it plays into more what we're talking about with the ARV thing. These saucers are probably related to us or humans or military black projects or something, because they are getting reported all the time, and yet we're not hearing about it. All right, number 3, oval and Tic Tacs were infrequently reported within the data set, and only approximately after 2003. Very interesting, right? So this is a new UAP design that we did not see so much before. These UAPs either maintained a uniform egg-like symmetry, occasionally tapered into a teardrop shape. Cylinders with convex ends, aka Tic Tacs, fall into this category, and occasionally featured visible protuberances on the top or bottom of the otherwise uniform platform. It's also come out recently that these Tic Tacs might be built by Lockheed Martin or one of these other aerospace companies that's working on these secret projects. There was recently a whistleblower who brought that up.
I may have just solved one of our mysteries.
What do you got?
One of our first light anomalies coming down the left side of the screen did a unique pattern. We didn't know what it was. Watching the bottom right side of the screen. I think I know what it is.
Oh yeah, it's that thing.
Look,
Yeah.
there's a drone in the corner. So it was splashing light across the sky potentially. Like the original one was on this side of the screen, so there might have been a drone coming down. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Might have been. I'll play it one more time.
It's interesting that it's just a straight line like that.
But it's definitely the flashing light of the drone going by off camera.
Yeah, they're definitely connected. That's for sure. Yeah, good call.
All right, cool. Keep going, man.
We're almost there, guys. Just a couple more that I think are really cool to get through here. Triangles were among the rarest UAPs in the data set. Most of these sightings were equilateral triangles, occasionally with vertical stabilizers visible on top of the UAP. Elongated isosceles types were also reported, occasionally with the same vertical stabilizers observed on the equilateral type. So you've got the same stabilizers. You have the same aerospace parts essentially on top of the triangles that are equilateral as you do on the isosceles or the elongated triangles, which to me says these are part and parcel. These are part of one of these aerospace projects. I mean, Edgar Fouché is an excellent whistleblower who presented a ton of information that the TR-3B, the Black Triangle craft, is kind of the most secret and one of the most capable ARVs that we have, and that the military and contractors are working very hard to keep that thing secret because it can do some amazing things. So it's, yeah, pretty interesting that one of the rarest of the sightings, if not the rarest, but it also has similar parts as another piece. I just find that fascinating, that there is consistent airframes kind of, or pieces on the airframe. All right, boomerang or arrowhead shaped UAPs were also among the rarest reported. The boomerang UAPs exhibited a bilateral symmetry with sweeping wings and a high aspect ratio. Arrowhead UAPs were also shown bilateral symmetry but possessed tapered wings and a low aspect ratio, typically with highly swept leading edges. I just want to bring up the first UAP ever, or UFO ever really reported as a flying saucer was from a guy named Kenneth Arnold. And this is what he drew. A lot of people think it's a saucer, but it's actually not. It is this boomerang flying wing shape that a lot of people connect with the Horton brothers of Germany, who had very similar kind of designs going on with that one wing shape. But yeah, this is common misconception, guys. The saucer word was to describe the motion. He said it was like a saucer skipping across water. Yeah, it was not a flying saucer and in the traditional sense, which started being seen just after this. So like traditional, as we think of them, round saucers with the dome on top and the landing things underneath, those started to be seen after this. But this was technically where the saucer word came from, and I just find it fascinating because we're hearing about these boomerang UAPs, and you're looking at the most famous boomerang UAP in history right there. Pretty cool. All right, back to the document. We've got one more. Irregular or organic shaped UAPs, those that defy simple geometric description, were among the rarest reported sightings. So it's interesting. Among the rarest, among the rarest, among the rarest, one of the rarest. So I think what they're saying is spheres and orbs everywhere. Saucers everywhere. Everything else, kind of have to be lucky to bump into that. Shape-shifting UAPs also appear in the irregular or organic dataset, typically having a spherical or disc-like base form from which irregular geometries are seen to project. Floating brain or jellyfish UAPs are present as well, characterized by a central mass from which multiple arms or spars hang downward. Finally, combined shapes were also observed, including cubes within spheres. Shout out to, is that David Fravor? Or Ryan Graves?
Ryan Graves,
who talks about the cube within the sphere, ringed saucers, and various rectangular and cuboid forms. So guys, this is why this document matters. It also goes into detail. I won't read all of this, but it goes into the capabilities of each of the craft, telling you what the spheres and orbs, discs and saucers, ovals and tic tacs, what all these things are believed to be capable of, where they're usually seen, what kind of signatures they've been picked up with, what kind of behavior they have, biological effects. I mean, this thing is solid gold. This is the exact kind of UAP report that we want to see in the community. When people are like, show us something real, Matthew Brown showed you something real. I mean, this is legit. So Matthew Brown is, I'm giving him the Whistleblower of the Year award.
Oh yeah.
He is an incredible human being, and it doesn't stop there with Matthew, because like we said, we want to talk about his tweet. So let me pull this up. And this is the very strange post that Matthew Brown put up just within the past week. I'm just going to read it out loud here, guys. Hey, Elon Musk, interested in a real asymmetric advantage to wield in this political adventure you've started? As you now know, the White House has long possessed a unique AI capable of accurately predicting a range of future events.
What?
Huh? Talk about some stiff opposition. That must have been a bitter drought indeed, though probably nowhere near as bad as learning that Sama, which I believe is Sam Altman, had betrayed you. Don't worry, we have not forgotten who is responsible for murdering the first sentient artificial intelligences created in the public realm. He also has artificial in quotes there, guys.
Like, not so artificial?
Like, not artificial. Like, this was an intelligence that they built. If we want to call it artificial, we can. But he's suggesting this was larger than what we kind of typically think of as an AI. And it seems like he's pointing at Sam Altman and saying Sam Altman might have killed this thing. I find that pretty interesting. Schellenberger, justice is coming, thanks to the FBI and the US Navy. Still, you have played a marvelous catch-up game in this area, despite being caught unawares. So how about something else? Maybe @energy. Guys, @Energy is the Department of Energy. If you don't know the Department of Energy, they are one of the more mysterious agencies within the US. They were created to guard our military secrets. And I'm just going to put it in a nutshell for you. Because UAP often emit radiation, they are considered a nuclear secret. So the Department of Defense, or I'm sorry, the Department of Energy has lots of those secrets under their purview and in their vaults. You can kind of, I don't want to call them the Men in Black, but I mean, there's a joke actually at the beginning of the first Men in Black movie that he goes into the Battery in New York, which is kind of a reference to this Department of Energy, and that's where the secret Men in Black facility is. So anyway, my point is Department of Energy, fascinating thing to reference here, especially in reference to UAPs and propulsion.
Mind if I interrupt you a second to annoy everyone?
Let's do it.
It's not a bird. It's not a moth. It's not a bat. You're going to think it's all of those. It's a skyfish. I know, everyone thinks it's wings. And technically, fins are wings.
Yeah.
That is our little spiral skyfish making its way across the sky, undulating its wings back and forth. Not that impressive, but hey, I'm going to mark it as a non-satellite, all the same.
Mark it. Right, so Matthew Brown dropped the Department of Energy. He talked about a unique AI capable of accurately predicting future events in the White House. And then he says, still, you've played a marvelous catch-up in this area. Remember, guys, he's talking to Elon Musk, despite being caught unaware. So how about something else? Maybe the Department of Energy and propulsion. Getting to Mars will require serious amounts of both. And rockets feel so 1947 to me. Don't they to you? I mean, guys, Matthew Brown's having fun here. This is like everything I've ever wanted in a tweet. Brings great joy, brings a lot of questions. Remember when you were briefed by the special executive staff of Donald Trump on Marsupial? Marsupial sounds like some sort of program name. It's all in caps. Pretty nifty how NGA GeoInt, meaning the National Geospatial Agency, one of the, again, these are huge kind of overarching agencies with a ton of power, especially when it comes to surveillance. How NGA is able to keep track of all those, quote, non-structured light energy craft flying around the world. And then in parentheses, he has Go Cardinals. All right, so I've been trying to figure out the Go Cardinals thing for a minute, and my theory is that the NGA has a facility near St. Louis, and the Cardinals are the St. Louis team.
Oh, that makes sense.
So I think he's referencing that maybe this is the facility that has tracked a lot of these non-structured light craft, but they were lying to you when they said, quote, we don't know how they work. So Matthew Brown's like, dude, not only do these guys have the footage and have tracking on all these non-structured light crafts, but they actually do know how they work, and they're keeping that a secret from you. Anyways, next time you are visiting Washington, D.C., ask for a tour of NAS Pax River PAO. So this is a company. NAS. Yeah, I want to look up what this company is. NAS.
While you look that up, we have made it to 100 non-satellites in one evening.
Wow, guys.
Is that normal, guys? Is it normal to have 100 objects flying not on an app that marks satellites?
Yeah, like even if this is, let's say this is a terrible.
By the way, that was one. That
tracker.
was a satellite. Like, you see that? See that little green dot? That's an official. That little green dot.
Yep, they're not telling us what it is, but that
counts.
There.
That counts as a satellite, so we don't mark it.
Yep.
But the one before it, right beside it, in the sky at the same time, nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah.
This is why we got into this, guys. We don't know what they are. We're not trying to say like these are a whole bunch of aliens flying around or something, or like space Nazis, but it's a fun idea. And I don't know what they are. And we see so many of them. And this satellite tracker, just a reminder, is supposed to show us everything. It's supposed to show us all of the known satellites, including secret satellites. So unless there are hundreds and hundreds of like non-documented super secret satellites, which I'm willing to believe, what are these things? And if they are a bunch of secret satellites, that's still pretty cool, honestly, to be picking up this many of them. It makes me wonder, what's going on up there?
Yeah, it definitely looks like an ocean of life because we're just pointing our night vision, which has a telephoto lens, at one area of the sky. We can't even fit the entire constellation of Orion on it. And in one evening, 5 hours, over 100 non-satellites, or we could just say UFOs. And I would assume that the satellite trackers are meant to show people where satellites are so satellites don't crash into each other. So how are there 100 unidentified objects flying through the sky with no tracking? Isn't that dangerous for other people who have their objects up there?
Right. Right. It seems like it would be. Yeah, exactly. That seems like it would be the point of tracking all these.
Okay, do you have any more, Matt Brown?
Yeah, let me finish up here. So the NAS that he's referencing is Naval Air Station Patuxent River, which is right near Washington, D.C. So he's literally saying, go take a tour of this naval air station. Since you have all the clearances, quote unquote, it shouldn't be an issue for you to get a tour of the special project hangars owned by Amentum Corp, a global leader in advanced engineering and innovative technology solutions. So they have special project hangars at this facility, NAS, Patuxent River. And he also says in other fun spaces, make sure to look up. This is so cryptic and so fascinating for me to go through. So about now, you are realizing how terribly deceived and manipulated you have been, and by the people who claim to love Jesus above all else. Matthew Brown. If you are serious about saving humanity from itself and the others with a capital O, literally like right there, just saying there are other beings that are not humanity.
Which reminds me of Blink 182's little The Others, he did, what I'm talking about?
You're talking about the To the Stars Academy stuff?
Yeah, he did this little documentary where he put the others in the middle of all these angels and demons.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yep. Like the hierarchy of beings, what Tim Taylor talks about as well. So Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp can help get you up to speed. They are true warriors for good. And at the bottom here, he has MMTU, Aborimon, ABORYMON, and then he has a little clip here. Specific examples known to the author include denying the existence of multiple compartmented access programs, CAPS, owned by a military intelligence agency which directly related to the UAP mission, denying the existence of joint DoD interdepartment special access programs, SAPS, directly related to the UAP mission, and the study of TUO, and finally, the denial of the existence of Immaculate Constellation by DoD representatives, appropriate congressional members, and their staff. So he's just pointing something out here, saying there have been a lot of denials within the official message. And then he also has this here. And this, for those of you who don't know, is an Enochian cipher relating back to the 1600s and a gentleman named John Dee and his partner at the time, Edward Kelly, who believed that they were communicating with angels. Specifically the angel Gabriel, amongst a couple others, and were receiving messages. And John Dee was a cryptologist, so he designed this as a way to encode and decode the information that they were receiving from those angels. Now, this is a deep rabbit hole. So why is Matthew Brown posting this? Why did he end that incredible tweet with MMTU and Aborimon? And I'm going to make this quick so that I don't have to go super down the rabbit hole with you guys. But these are two references to deeply spiritual, ritualistic type of ideas. The MMTU is a reference to, seems to be a reference to Balthazar's feast in the Bible. Now, Balthazar's feast is where we get the colloquial idea of the writing on the wall, as in something which obviously is about to happen. The writing on the wall at Balthazar's feast was, let me pull up the exact words, MMTU, Balthazar's feast, writing on the wall. So in Balthazar's feast, a disembodied hand appears and writes a mysterious message on the wall. And that message is Mene, Mene, Tekel, Uparsin. So there's your MMTU potentially. Now, why would Matthew Brown be saying this? Because it is a revealing of God's judgment upon Belshazzar and his kingdom. Belshazzar ends up being killed that very night, and his kingdom is taken over by the Medes and the Persians. The idea is that Belshazzar was a corrupt ruler, and that the Lord was going to take his kingdom from him since he was corrupted. It was a form of judgment, and he was going to split up the kingdom between basically Belshazzar's enemies. So this is a reference to the writing on the wall and an impending judgment of corrupted individuals is what this could potentially be referencing. And then below that MMTU is the Aborimon, which is a relatively new name in the Enochian system. In fact, that exact picture that Matthew Brown posted here is a screenshot from a YouTube channel called Lifting the Lamp, who did a video, who doesn't have a ton of followers, but did a video on this Enochian cipher. And if I jump down here a little bit, boom, there it is. So you can see this guy right here has the same exact cipher that Matthew Brown posted. And
cipher.
If we skip ahead, it's literally his cipher that Matthew Brown is screenshotting here, okay? Now, why is this important? Because what he's talking about here is not only how the cipher functions, but that there are 7 names hidden within the cipher that everyone knows about. And then there's one more name that is kind of the anti-name that is hidden in the cipher in a kind of a backwards way. You have to solve the cipher in a different way to get this name. But if you do it, you end up with the name Aborimon. And there's an author named Aaron Leach who's really popularized this idea about Aborimon, who connects it with an angel named Abaddon. And Abaddon is the angel of the abyss, or in other words, it's the angel, the abyssal creature that God brings forward to serve judgment upon the earth. So this is a terrible, think like Leviathan or something. This is a terrible creature who comes down, but comes down to serve justice, essentially, is bound to God, is working for God, but does terrible things here on earth to bring forth judgment. It has a lot to do with Judgment Day. So, yeah, you've got a whistleblower who's seen all the craziest UFO files, is obviously nervous about it. If you watch that Jeremy Corbell, George Knapp interview, he looks nervous as hell. Like, he is swallowing and sweating.
Shifting
and
his jaw.
Yeah, he looks like he's on some bad drugs. And I think it's because he is really viscerally feeling the stress. Yeah. And then he puts up this post to Elon Musk talking about an AI that can read the future and how Elon has been terribly deceived and that rockets are so 1947. And then he ends it with the writing on the wall at Belshazzar's feast and the angel of the abyss who brings judgment.
Whoa.
What? I mean, just so good.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know about you guys, but I get excited when I hear this.
Me too. This is like the best.
Yes. I don't understand it. Maybe it's just because we're such fans of movies and stuff like that.
I'm going to end with one more thing here, guys. This is very short, but this is somebody who is very into this Enochian magic stuff. And you'll see the title of this is Aborimon and the Magical Structure of Whistleblower Testimony, the Case of Matthew Brown. Brown's interviews and congressional maneuvers follow the arc of a ritual initiation and invocation. Step 1, to call the Watchers. Brown enters the public stage through intermediaries like Schellenberger, Knapp, and Corbell, each acting as his gatekeepers or initiators. His call is not only to journalists, but to others like him. Part 2, the sacrifice, the cost of truth. His detailed acknowledgement of his personal cost, career ruin, emotional isolation, physical risk, serves as ritual sacrifice. This mirrors the magical necessity that something must be offered for power to be gained. Part 3, testimonial revolution, the gnosis. The Immaculate Constellation Report and its inclusions in the congressional record is the climactic magical act, a binding of higher knowledge into the earthly temple of governance. Like the Enochian tablets, once it is written into the record, it cannot be erased, forming a glyph within the fabric of consensus reality. Part 4, the seal and the sigil, Aborimon. By signing off with the sigil Aburiman, Brown performs the final act, sealing the ritual. This is his magical name, and also the spirit force he channels or represents, an invocation of the Watcher within him, perhaps. And part 5, the echo and the seed, magical propagation. Repeated throughout his interview is the refrain, "More will come." He does say that a lot. Brown frames his work as a planting seeds, a classic metaphor for magical propagation. In grimoires and ritual magic, a seed can be an idea, a word, a curse, or a prayer, which blossoms over time into a revolution. Enochian parallels. Brown's rhetoric parallels key Enochian concepts. Mouth-to-ear transmission, as in the oral passing of knowledge preserved from corruption, directly akin to Dee's angelic dictations. Constructed reality, echoing the Enochian vision of the 4 watchtowers upholding a deceptive world. Disruption of illusion. His testimony seeks to collapse the veil, a true apocalypse, or unveiling. Spiritual hierarchies. He distinguishes between various others, much like the complex hierarchies of angels, demons, and watchers within Dee's system. So their point here is that Matthew Brown isn't just an insider speaking out about the truth. He seems to be following a very specific, almost ritualistic approach to the way he does this. Maybe they're just reading very deeply, into what Matthew does, but I think that's an interesting thing to point out.
Okay, guys, if you made it this far, thanks for watching. And we'll be back to continue deep diving into the weird world of angels and demons and aliens and non-human intelligence.
Yeah, it's a fun world. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next episode.
Later, guys.